Welcome to Check Writing for ACS. In this tutorial, we'll cover how to enter a checking transaction, print a check, and how to create a vendor. If you've not reviewed the welcome email, please pause the video now and work through the steps outlined in the email to download the ACS software. When you first log on to ACS, the default window is a client dashboard shown here. This window lists ACS updates and other business information. Since you will work more in the enter transaction window, we will change the software to open that window as a default. To do this, click on Setup in the menu bar, select User Preferences, and from the Favorite Screen drop-down menu, select Enter Transactions, then click OK. The next time you log on to ACS, the software will open to the Enter Transaction window. Now we will work on entering a checking transaction. On the left-hand side of your screen, there are icons that will allow you to move between the windows. You can also move between these windows by using the menu bar. Under the menu bar is a toolbar. This will allow you to change between the journal mode and bank account mode in the enter transaction window. For this tutorial, we will use the bank account mode. In the right-hand corner, choose the bank account where you will issue the check from. You can also set up a default checking account by going to the menu bar, selecting Edit, then Options, and in the bank account drop-down window, choose your default bank account. Then click OK. There are two windows in the Enter Transaction screen. The top is a running ledger of all your transactions, and the bottom is where you enter in checking detail. This bottom window is called the Transaction Detail window, and it is where we will start. Since we are issuing a check, we'll select the type to be AP check. The bank account is set to your default bank account, but if you need to change it, you can change it here in the drop-down menu. Journal is always general, so you can skip this. The posting period is the last day of the month in which the check was issued. For checks issued through the system, you want to make sure that the handwritten check number box is unchecked. If you are entering in the information for a check that was handwritten, you would select this box and then put the check number in the area below. For this tutorial, we'll be issuing the check out of the system, so we will deselect this box. The date is already entered in there for you, but if you are entering information for a handwritten check, you can override this if necessary. Enter in the vendor ID in the next field. If this is a new vendor, you will have to create a vendor ID. To create a vendor record, type the ID in and press Tab. This ID is limited to 11 characters, but can be anything you want. Select Yes in the pop-up window and the vendor record will open. First, update the vendor name field to the full name of the payee. If this vendor is a 1099 vendor, change the vendor type to 1099 recipient. If you are unsure what vendor should get a 1099, please contact us for additional training. Next, enter the address that will be printed on the check in the appropriate fields. If you identified the vendor as a 1099 recipient, enter the appropriate information on the 1099 Properties tab. On the Distribution tab, select the default expense account for this vendor. I always purchase dental supplies from this vendor, so I will enter that. If this is a 1099 vendor, you will also have to identify it here. Now the vendor record is set up and we can press Enter and then Done to bring us back to our Enter Transaction window. You can see that the payee, distribution line, and address are now pre-filled. This information will always populate when you enter the ID. If you enter in an ID and then delete the ID, remember to remove the pre-filled address since the system only clears the distribution lines. Enter in the amount to be paid. If you want a memo line printed on the check, enter it here. You can split the payment into multiple accounts by overwriting the amount on the first line and adding as many lines as needed. For this invoice, I paid $100 in supplies, and the rest went to dental equipment. Now that I'm done splitting the expense, I'll press enter, and you can see our transaction is now up in the top window in our register. No check number has been issued yet since the check has not been printed. Before we print a check, we want to confirm that the next check number in the system and the check number on the stock match. To do this, go to your bank account window, and in the reference check number, see if they match. If they do not match, you can select Edit and change the check number in the system to match your check stock. For this tutorial, my check numbers match, so I will not change the check number. Now that you have confirmed the check numbers match, you can select the Print Checks window. If the Accounts Payable tab is not selected, select the Accounts Payable tab, click the plus next to your client's name, and you will see the list of checks ready to be printed. If this is your first printing run, I would suggest doing a trial print on normal printer paper. This will help you identify how the check should be loaded into the printer. Select the check that you want printed and click Print Selected in the lower right-hand corner. Verify the correct output printer is selected and click OK. A window will pop up after printing where you confirm if the check's printed correctly. If there was an error and you can reuse the check, go ahead and select No. If the check was damaged, then click Yes and void the check in the system. When you select Yes, the system advances the counter for the next check number. My check printed correctly, so I will select Yes. You can see the check is removed from the print list, and if we go to the transaction window, the check number was assigned to the entry. If you want to, you can enter more than one checking transaction at a time. All the entries will be available on the page, ready to be printed at once. Be aware that if you do print multiple checks at once, some printers by default will start with the last page first, and therefore the printer will print the checks in reverse order from the automatically assigned check numbers in the system. You will want to confirm this before printing or have your IT guy see if he can help you out. Otherwise, just print one check at a time. This completes our tutorial on check writing. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please reach out to your accounting specialist.